we start whenever you are ready.
Thank you. Good afternoon. We met today in a virtual form at the Foreign Affairs Council, but the agenda was again very packed. We had in the agenda a discussion about the results of the US presidential elections. It was just the first discussion. It will be again in the agenda on the 7th of December. And Afghanistan, Belarus, Nagorno Karabakh, Libya, Ethiopia, Turkey, multilateralism, and we had an exchange with the Foreign Minister of Palestine. As you can see, many topics and really difficult issues. Now let me brief you to some points. On the United States, as I said, this was the first opportunity for us to exchange views on the overall direction of transatlantic relations after the elections. Several member states have been publishing articles in the press. Today there were the three members of the Benelux expressing their point of views as good. I suppose all member states will make public their analysis. But at the end we have to go for a common approach and how to engage in a stronger friendship and a better partnership with the US, which is at the end our most important strategic ally. In the meantime, the Commission and myself, as representative, they're still also working on how to approach a new era, a new era on the relationship with the US. But I hope that on the 7th of December, the Council will be able to agree on a common approach, which is at the end the purpose of these meetings. I don't expect to speak with a single voice, but saying the same thing. Some member states were expecting that this discussion could be longer, and maybe not to have a complete agreement on the Council of December Council, but let's start working at the working group levels and to have a look again at this very important issue in December. My understanding is that a capable and strategically aware European Union is the best partner for the US. And it is also what we need ourselves. Every time we want to talk about the strategic autonomy, a subject which is very much on the media, on the discussion that has been taking place those days, the expression of strategic autonomy is controversial, but it doesn't mean that we are not going to continue being the best partner of the US. It's a matter of still being a better partner. We'll have more substantial discussions, as I said, on the strategic orientation of our relation with the US at the next FAC. And once the new Secretary of State will be in office, I will invite him to join us at the Foreign Affairs Council. Going now to the specific issues. On Afghanistan, we raised the next week's pledging conference that comes at a crucial time of the peace process in Afghanistan. Through this conference, we want to give a positive impetus to our support to the Afghan people and also to the peace process, and send a clear message of solidarity through this financial pledge. But at the same time, the ministers stress the importance of sending also a message that this support should be accompanied by a very clear political and governance conditions. On Belarus, the situation continues to deteriorate. The repression by the Lukashenko regime against people has not stopped. We have already sanctioned more than 50 individuals in 2 rounds of sanctions. And today we have agreed to proceed with the preparation of the next round of sanctions as a response to the brutality of the authorities and in support for the democratic rights of the Belarusian people. But these sanctions should go not only to the individuals, but also to institutions and entrepreneurs and firms. I also updated ministers on the review of European Union-Belarus relations. The Foreign Affairs Council tasked the High Representative to present a broad approach to the review, a complete review of our relations with Belarus, going further from sanctions. And that's what I did in agreement with the Commission services. This report has been finalized and it has been submitted to member states that will study it and will take decisions about it on the next Foreign Affairs Council. As you can imagine, it is related with downloading all contacts and cooperation at bilateral level and maintaining it where it can be beneficial for Belarusian people or for our interest. To downgrade the participation of Belarus in the Eastern Partnership at the non-political level and several other measures. I will inform you about it next Foreign Affairs Council once the ministers decided what to do with my proposals. On Nagorno Karabakh, we have issued a recent declaration recalling the importance we attach to the settlement of this conflict and to express our full support to further efforts in this regard under the auspices of the OSCE Minsk Group co-chairs. And we remain ready to play the part that we could do in order to bring a lasting peace to a crucial region in our neighborhood and to cooperate on the definitive settlement of the Nagorno Karabakh status. On Libya, overall we are seeing encouraging steps which can mark a turning point in the Libya conflict. We should not, nevertheless, not to underestimate remaining difficulties. And that's why the United Nations led the Berlin process, and those working constructively towards a political solution by the Libyans, for the Libyans, without outside interference, deserve our full and continued support. On Ethiopia, the situation in the Tigray region, the ethnic targeted violence, the allegation of atrocities and human rights abuses are of deep concern. There is a real danger of an imminent and major humanitarian crisis in Ethiopia in the close region. We are really very much concerned for these prospects, and we have reiterated our call for dialogue and to stop violence in return to dialogue. I briefed ministers about my calls with Ethiopian and regional partners, to whom I express my concerns and the European Union readiness to support a peaceful solution and an inclusive dialogue. It has been an intensive diplomatic outreach at different levels to stakeholders that could influence the two parties. The Commission has informed the Council about the mobilization of resources, financial resources, to try to help the Ethiopian refugees that has been flying the region in conflict to the neighborhoods countries, mainly in Sudan. On Eastern Mediterranean, the ministers discussed a further deterioration of the situation. We recall European Union solidarity with Cyprus and Greece. We consider the recent actions and a statement by Turkey related to Cyprus were considered contrary to United Nations resolutions and further igniting tensions. And we consider also that it is important that Turkey understands that its behavior is widening its separation from the EU. Sorry to say that, but that's what the Foreign Affairs Ministers consider it. In order to return to a positive agenda, as we wish, we will require a fundamental change of attitude on the Turkish side. The European Council will provide crucial direction on this next month. Time is running, and we are approaching a watershed moment in our relationship with Turkey. On multilateralism, we have had interesting and long discussions about how the European Union can help defend and modernize a multilateral system, which is at the same time a process and an outcome. How can we enhance cooperation on global challenges and support reforms in order to address those challenges effectively? Ministers give their guidance on how the European Union can best use our collective engagement to promote our values and advance on our interests in multilateral fora. This discussion will provide useful input to the joint strategy on strengthening the European Union contribution to multilateralism, which I will present early next year, together with the Commission. Then we discussed with the Palestinian Foreign Minister, Riyad Maliki, the situation in Palestine, in the Middle East peace process, and our bilateral relations. We welcome the recent decision of the Palestinian Authority to resume cooperation and dialogue with Israel. I'm doing a resume of what I've been talking about. First, the resuming the cooperation and dialogue with Israel from the Palestinian Authority. Second, the need to relaunch Palestinian-Israeli negotiations in order to find a lasting solution to the conflict. Deep concern was expressed regarding Israeli settlement activities, which threaten the viability of the two-state solution. Reiterated European Union support to a two-state solution and discuss how can we contribute to create better conditions for the resumption of negotiations between Israelis and Palestinians. We stress that the inter-Palestinian reconciliation is urgently needed, and also free, fair, inclusive, genuine and democratic elections are important for the Palestinian state building and unity. And we are ready to support this electoral process if and when a presidential decree is issued with a date of the vote. Finally, the Council adopted the Action Plan on Human Rights and Democracy for the next 5 years, which contain the main priorities on how to advance and defend human rights and democracy through our external actions. I ask the member states to make proposals to take decisions faster in a more effective way by using qualified majority voting when implementing the action plan, not for everything, but for the implementation actions of this action plan. Member States did not agree to this initial proposal, but I will pursue this discussion with them to promote a greater use of qualified majority voting in the area of external relations to have a more efficient decision-making process in defense of our interests and values. This is the best resume I could do about this long and intense Foreign Affairs Council, and I remain at your disposal.
Thank you very much, High Representative. And it was so exhaustive that there is no need for questions, actually, but we have more than 50 colleagues, journalists joined, so I will give the floor to Athanasios, who has his hand raised as first. Athanasios, wait a few seconds. And
I'm sure they will have questions.
Try to go ahead, Athanasios.
Tricky question.
Thank you very much. Thank you, High Representative Athanasios, Cyprus News Agency, and Star TV Greece. So you mentioned Turkey. What measures are you taking in order to avoid a meltdown with Turkey in December? And apart from the positive agenda and the sanctions options, is there maybe a third option for the summit? Let's say to give more time to Turkey in view of, let's say, some kind of negotiation that will start with the United Nations for the resolution of the Cyprus issue or anything else? Or do we just have those two options when we arrive at the Council in December? Thanks.
But I cannot anticipate the decision of the leaders at the European Union Council. My task is not to anticipate what they are going to decide, but to prepare their decision. The Council tasked the President of the Council and the President of the Commission directly, the two highest authorities, to prepare and present to the Council a palette of options in order to increase a positive engagement and to take measures in case that this positive engagement would not be possible, depending on the attitude that Turkey was going to show from the last European Union Council until the next European Union Council. I am supporting the work of the two presidents, and at the same time I am working on a task that was specifically addressed to the High Representative, which is the organization of a international conference on the Eastern Mediterranean issues, and that's what I am fully devoted. I cannot anticipate which are the measures that the two presidents will present to the European Union Council. They will depend on the prospects that the Turkish behavior will advise to follow. By the time being, unhappily, there are no positive signals sent from Turkey. And the last events in Cyprus, in Varosha, in Famagusta, has been also considered as very negative in my communication immediately after, and also by the Foreign Affairs Ministers today. About the preparation of this Eastern Mediterranean Conference, we already have a position paper that has been consulted with the ambassadors of the countries that should be invited to participate in this conference.
Thank you. Next question, Yuri Sheiko, Deutsche Welle. Yuri, go ahead.
Thank you. High Representative, I have questions on Belarus. So you said that now EU will be preparing sanctions against companies and enterprises. So what will it mean concretely, those sanctions? Will it mean that EU companies won't be able to trade, to make financial deals or whatever with the Belarusian companies? And the second question, you said that the situation in Belarus is only deteriorating despite everything what the EU has done. Does it mean that this mild approach that the EU has taken from the very beginning, and the approach of trying to have a dialogue with Lukashenko regime, that it was a wrong approach? And what are other options except for additional sanctions and review of the relations that you are thinking of? Thank you very much.
Look, about Belarus, things are clear. Member states consider that there is no positive sign at all from Lukashenko regime, which continues refusing to engage in any kind of discussion with the European Union, to receive any mission from the OSCE, and continue the repression against their people. And so in these conditions, the European Union has to react using the tools that we have. Sanctions is one of these tools. And many, I wouldn't say all of them, but many member states today ask to prepare a new package of sanctions. And these sanctions, as I said, should also not only be addressed to individuals, because there are already almost 50 individual sanctions. One day we will exhaust the number of people that could be sanctioned. And now we have to go to maybe more sensitive issues, which is sanctioning firms, which will affect the developing of their normal economic activity. But it is up to the member states to make proposals. As you know, the way we work is that the member states are in charge of preparing proposals and providing evidence in order to justify these proposals. They have been invited to do as much as they want, as they need, as they consider adequate, and my services will quickly implement the procedures in order to adopt these sanctions. This will be another strong signal that the European Union will not give up in front of the repression of the Belarusian people and the violation of their fundamental rights. What else? Well, this is the report with a comprehensive approach about what can we do from any point of view on our bilateral cooperations, and on the way in which we dialogue with the Belarusian government, on the way Belarus is part and parcel of the Eastern Partnership, on the way we can support or keep the human rights dialogue. And this is contained on this document, and the member states has to study it and to decide on the next Foreign Affairs Council which of these measures they want to take. But as I see in the atmosphere, the ambience today, I am sure that they will agree on adopting all of them.
Thank you. Next question, Thomas Gutschke, Frankfurter Allgemeine Zeitung. Thomas.
Thanks. High Representative, a question on Belarus as well. As you said, the sanctions so far cannot have had any effect in changing the behavior of the Lukashenko regime. So I'm wondering, can you tell us whether they've had any effect on individuals? So out of these more than 50 people, have any assets, financial assets, been frozen so far, or did they simply not have any assets in the European Union? That's my first question. And the second question, I think it's part of your mandate to also find ways to enhance the work with the Belarusian civil society. And it remains a big question how to channel funds, these 50 million euros that have been appropriated in the context of COVID-19, plus the additional 3 million euros, how to channel this money into the country without benefiting the regime. Do you see any way how to do this now? Thank you.
Yes, it's not an easy task, because it's clear for us that none of our European resources will be channeled through the Lukashenko government. All our resources devoted to Belarus will be addressed to help the civil society. I cannot go into detail on how this will flow to the civil society, because it will go through ONGs, international organizations. I can provide more information in detail, but now I cannot give you a precise answer to which channels are we going to use. But be sure that not a single euro of the European money will go to the Belarusian government. And the implementation of the financial sanctions is under the control of the Vice President Dombrovskis, who is in charge of managing the financial sanctions. One, they have been decided by the Foreign Affairs Council, and I cannot give you specific information about the amount of assets that has been frozen belonging to these 50 persons. But sanctions is not only frozen of financial assets, it's also bans for traveling. And believe me, these kind of things are very much taken into consideration by the incumbent, by the people who are being under these sanctions. In any case, this is what the European Union can do, sanctioning from the financial and traveling point of view.
Thank you. Thank you, High Representative. Next question, Jacopo Barigazzi, Politico.
Thank you. I have a couple of questions then. One is on the discussion on the US. The rep said that he hopes to have an agreement on a common approach. And I was wondering, we saw also the Germans and the French publicly discussing on interpretation of on their differences in looking at what strategic autonomy means. And so I was wondering, High Rep, how deep are these divisions, and what's the most relevant point of division that you have seen in the discussion? Secondly, on QMV, where specifically you think to push for more to use QMV instead of unanimity? Thank you.
My proposal to use this, the qualified majority voting was not addressed to the whole set of decisions that the Foreign Affairs Council is taking. It's just about the implementation of the plan to support democracy and human rights. It's quite a modest proposal, because the plan has been adopted. We know what to do. It's just a matter of deciding by qualified majority the specific implementation decisions. But even being a modest proposal, it has not been accepted yet. But I think things moving on this direction. And I will insist, and I think it is going to be possible in the near future, that for this specific issue, the implementation of the decisions of the the decision that implements the plan for supporting democracy and human rights can be taken by qualified majority. Just that. The others, I am not discussing them now because I know that it is much more difficult. Let's just start by this. Well, how can I obtain a positive result? By discussing, by persuasion, by making the member states aware that it will have a positive side because we will be ready to do things quicker, to react quicker. You know, when you have to take some decision in order to defend human rights and democracy, you cannot expect 6 months, 1 year to take a decision. And you cannot accept that these decisions can be blocked by one member state decides not to support them. If they are in accordance with the plan that has been approved, the plan has been approved. So the implementation of this plan should not be a big issue, because it's something that has to be taken in accordance with the plan that has been approved by qualified majority. By unanimity. So I think that we will get it. Other more important decisions, by the time being, has not been proposed to take them by qualified majority. And then about the discussion on transatlantic relations and strategic autonomy. You know, a strategic autonomy is not a concept related to not only to the transatlantic relations. Every time that we use the word autonomy, a lot of people think autonomy with respect to the US in the framework of NATO. Well, this is a very narrow approach to a much wider concept. Autonomy is not with respect to one specific partner and not with respect to one specific issue. Autonomy means the capacity to act in many different fronts and with respect to many different agents. And this is something that has to be discussed. This was not the question on the table today. We will have to discuss a lot about strategic autonomy. For me, it's one of the most important concepts on building a foreign affairs and security policy. It will be in the agenda of the next Foreign Affairs Council. I will insist on discussing about it in order to desacralize it, not to talk about it as a theological concept, but as a practical thing that can be implemented in different fronts, in different aspects, with respect to different actors. When we talk about transatlantic relations, it's another thing. It's the way in which we and the United States can coordinate our actions in order to be better partners that we have been in the last years. Don't mix things, don't confuse things. Transatlantic relations is one thing, strategic autonomy is another thing. They are related, yes, but not only with the US. You need a strategic autonomy with respect to technology, the value chains, the providing of medicines, a lot of issues which are not related specifically with defense and not limitedly with respect to the US. And I think we have to make a clear difference between the two debates.
Thank you, and we have time for one last question. Nureddin Fridhi, Al Arabiya. Nureddin, we see you, but we don't hear you. Try to wait just a second. Your mic should be open any moment. I see it's still not open. Yes, it's open. Go ahead.
Open now? Yes. Good afternoon, Mr. Borrell. I have a question on Libya, if you don't mind. It's regarding the European Union support in UN-led process in Libya. My question is, will member states agree on the principle to participate in a United Nations ceasefire monitoring operation when, once the United Nations agree on the monitoring mechanism? And will you discuss this issue again, let's say, tomorrow with the Defense Minister? Thank you.
Well, it's not specifically in the agenda as an item in the agenda, but if some ministers raise the question, we will discuss it. By the time being, has not been in the agenda of the Foreign Affairs Ministers today, it's not in the agenda of the Defense Ministers tomorrow, but we are ready to support the United Nations to keep the ceasefire working as a precondition for any kind of political advancement. Nothing concrete, but complete readiness to cooperate as much as we can. Today, a good news about that is that France has offered Marseille, the civilian port of Marseille, as a point for disembarkation of the material that could be seized on the hailings of the boats by Operation Irini, of ships by Operation Irini. With that, we have solved a problem of what to do when we seize a boat or the load of a boat and it has to disembark. Now we have clear harbors in order to do that, and Operation Irini will continue working, and we are ready to increase our support under the United Nations auspices to contribute to keep the ceasefire working and to develop the political dialogue. But I cannot say that today this thing has been mentioned, because it has not.
Okay, thank you very much, but to be continued possibly tomorrow. High Representative, thank you. Colleagues, thank you for your time and questions. Thank you to the interpreters, and see you soon in this same room. Bye.
See you soon tomorrow, no?
Yeah.
Thank you. See you tomorrow.